through the male eyes and through the female eyes. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Okay. So are you what type of goddess are you? Because I've pulled up some research and it shows several types of goddesses. Are you Greek? Are you Welsh? Are you Slavic? Are you Norse? Are you Irish? Like
No,
what?
I'm just Issa, right? I don't I don't call women goddesses, and I don't consider myself a goddess. I consider myself a human woman walking on the planet with the rest of y'all. To be a goddess, it is it's an energy. Being a goddess is explaining the natural world, explaining the universe, understanding the universe. So for me, I wouldn't say I'm any of those things. The goddesses I do tend to lean towards would be like Oshun, Oya, um, uh, Kali, Sekhmet, Neith. Um, I even like Persephone from time to time. Uh, I'm not really locked into any specific culture when it comes to the goddess because I believe that every culture has something to say about life that you can learn from.
Could one relate a goddess to a witch?
No, a witch is a human.
You are in fact human, ma'am.
I
Or
just
are
said
you
I
not?
wasn't a goddess, right? A goddess is a deity that is here to explain the natural world, that is here to explain, what it is to be a woman. It's not real people. Now, witches are people, women, mostly women, but it was some men, so people that have been deemed negative because they live outside of the biblical norms.
Okay, I just want to read something that said goddess of witchcraft appears across various mythologies, revered to their command of spells, herbalism, and unseen realms. Here are seven notable witch goddesses from global folklore and their core domains. And I'm just going to give out one at this time. Hecata. It's a Greek mythology known as the ultimate queen of witches. She rules over magic, witchcraft, the night, ghosts, and crossroads. Revered by practitioners, she represents liminal spaces, transitions, and necromancy. Now, if one is to say that they are, in fact, a goddess, as the one that just by off research, one would say that a goddess is in fact a witch. And that's just my perspective on compare and contrast. Anyone else?
Right, but your perspective would be wrong, right? And your perspective is wrong because you're explaining a Greek goddess that is ancient using an old English word that isn't,
I
right?
mean
So
the I'm
hold on.
sorry.
So it would be impossible for the Greeks to use a word like witch, right? It would be impossible. So when we're thinking of these things, right, we got to understand that a lot of our teachings have been, placated or subjugated by the Western ideology. So
So
yeah, you will absolutely have, these women being herbalists, and
mhm.
be clear, we're talking about deities. We have these deities that were teaching the women about how to use different herbs and things like that. But never have they considered themselves to be witches. That is something that European people put on them.
So, are you saying that the witches were after the European colonization or before? Because if we're talking about ancient, we're talking about the Greek mythology, as I speak of. And according to this research, they are queen of witches. Now, they didn't use the word witches, and if I go down a little further, it says sorcerers. or magician. These are ancient texts that they were used to recognize a goddess. Empress, you had your hand up, and ChoZen, I'm gonna hand the mic back to you. Thank you, Issa Queen. Empress.
Okay. So I'm trying to understand what TT the scholar what she was trying. Okay, so it's a queen. You're talking about the goddesses that would be of Greek, Rome, the Hindu traditions, Egyptian and Norse pantheon. That's where you're at as far as goddess, right? I'm just trying to make sure I have a clear understanding of where we at.
Well, to be very clear, I don't necessarily lean into the Egyptian pantheon like that. I do like Osset, but for the most part, I am more ancient than that, right? I would I would see Neith. If I was talking about anything happening in that region, I would go to Neath. If I was doing anything that's happening in the Mediterranean area, I would say Medusa, right? Because Medusa is actually older than those the Greek pantheon. So again, when you're thinking about these things, you gotta recognize, especially if you're only going into the Greek, right? The Greek is a patriarchal society. They just are, right? So you won't, I don't necessarily deal with patriarchal feminine deities to that nature. So yeah, we could talk about the Greeks, but that's just not something that I believe in. Okay,
Thank you for that,
Okay,
piggyback.
Miss
no,
Bethany.
what I was trying to
Mhm.
figure out, because I know that you said goddesses and I was hearing her talk about witches, but what I was seeing is that I'm trying to make sure I understand the goddesses that you're talking about, because they had goddess that were they said female deities that did different, they were idols, let's just say that was worship, and they had different things they were called upon or that they were believed to bring, so I'm trying to understand where, okay, tune time, where are you getting the witch concept from? Because I don't think this would be these goddesses would be considered witches just because they were like fertile for fertility goddess, and what she
Mhm.
was talking about earlier, the nature of them, and they said they have human spirituality, but they're not actually human. We know that. But I'm trying to figure out where the witch part came in, because it's not like these are gods that are doing witchcraft or anything. They actually are known for representing certain things that people wanted brought to them, that they believe these goddess, I'm assuming, brought to them. They look to them for certain things. So I'm trying to figure out where the witchcraft came in. That's all.
Well,
Patriarchy.
it's a known fact that the goddesses in from the ancient brought up to modern time were called witches. You have from Welsh mythology, Ceridwen. I don't think I'm saying that right. Ceridwen, Ceridwen, the keeper of the cauldron of inspiration. Things like the cauldron, that is something that a witch would use. In Celtic lore, she is a dark prophetess, another key word, and mother figure associated with poetry, rebirth, and potent transformation magic. Now, they did, in fact, practice herbalists, practice healing, practice poetry, practice rebirth, but they also practice magic. And that's the part that would make them a witch in modern day terms, or sorcery in ancient terms.
Right, but
So
the
let me
thing
ask the
is, you're
question.
talking.
Would
I'm sorry, just 1 minute. It's a queen.
No,
I'm
go
not.
ahead,
I'm
do your
not
thing.
trying to cut you off, but you're talking about witches, which were actually human females who were doing certain witchcraft and stuff, and she's talking about goddesses, which were not human, but was seen in some form of human aspect. That's what
Okay,
I'm.
well then if they were seen as some form of human aspect, that would make them human, which makes them
What?
a witch,
Oh,
according to this
okay.
research. Now, I didn't write any of this literature. If you would like to dispute what I'm saying, you can also, I got this off of Google. I typed in goddesses, and this is what came up. Now, there are human deities who practice witchcraft and label themselves goddesses. So that's where my angle is coming from.
Well, so let's just, because you all, I don't know the goddess that you're talking about. Is probably European. I don't really deal with European goddesses, but for Haset, right? She is the queen of witchcraft in Roman times, but she's older than Roman times. They actually got her from, you know, Mediterranean hunter gatherers, right? And back then, she was she was a ruler of the sky, earth, and sea, right? And then you get patriarchy, who and there's actually a whole study on this where primordial goddesses have been usurped by patriarchal gods, right? You see this with Tiamat when Marduk tears her apart and creates the world with her. And before that, she was the worth. She was the world, right? It's a story talking about the new world order. It's the same thing you see with Medusa. Medusa used to be a earth deity as well. And then, the when it turns into, she gets absorbed into the Greek pantheon, she gets lessened and demonized. And it's the same thing with Hexet. It's the same thing with Sekhmet, right? Sekhmet used to be her own deity, and that Sekhmet used to be Hathor. Hathor was her own deity until, that whole story about Ra's eye and all of this stuff. But Hathor is older than Ra. So what you see is an ancient worship of the female deity. And then with the rise of the male deity and incorporating them into the mythology, you also see a switch over in power as well. So because religion and politics go hand in hand. Um, and I'm gonna land my plane with this. It happens with Kali, it happens with Tiamat, it happens with Neith, it happens with Hathor, it happens in so many different cultures because it's an actual thing. It's actually called what is it called? Male cult myths. If anytime y'all want to Google something, Google male cult myths, and it will explain everything that I'm talking about.
Thank you for that insight. It's a queen. I have a question, and any one of you ladies can answer that. Is there a goddess who has the same story of Mary, the mother of Jesus? Or are there any relatable stories from goddesses like the women in the Bible?
Yeah, I believe Aset is a big one. She's the mother of Heru, who is also a Jesus figure. Um, it's actually talking about divine motherhood. Artemis or Diana is another one. Anana is another one. Um, First of all, the idea of the virgin birth isn't new, right? We also have, I believe, in Aztec mythology, Guadalupe is another one who was a divine, a revered mother. Mary is a mother figure. Mary herself is a goddess in my pantheon, right? Because I don't believe that Mary was an actual woman walking on the earth. I think that Mary is an archetype of what motherhood is should be, written by men. That's what I think Mary
Mm,
is.
interesting.
Mary is the epitome of what a man wants to see in a woman: submissive, virginal, yet fertile, which makes no sense. She's a contradiction, but also a sacrificing mother. And I know
Hmm.
that I know those archetypes sounds familiar is because it's still the same archetypes that we base motherhood on to this day. How much you can sacrifice for your children and your family. How you are supposed to be able to have children, but then stay a virginal esque type of woman. Um, Being submissive to the men around them. She is the archetype of what women are supposed to be, stripped away of all the things that women actually are. What's up, Perp?
Thank you for that. It's the Queen. Purple, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to ask for clarification from you, from a two statements back when you were talking about the cauldron, and it's my understanding that you were saying if somebody uses a cauldron, that means they're practicing witchcraft. Is that an
What I
accurate?
said was that would be an item that you would associate with witchcraft.
Okay, because it's also associated with goddesses, right? But not for making any type of witch's brew. The cauldron was often used for creation, and like the cauldron of Dagda. Issa might know Dagga or Dagda. I forget where the G and the
Hmm.
D are. Was something that was used as an endless supply of food and nourishment,
Mm.
often rebirth and sustenance, not to make some, I have a newt, testicles of a rat type of thing, right? The symbolism often was just about providing, um, uh, creating something that was part of the pantheon, right? So I don't know when the cauldron became an issue or something that was associated with witchcraft in a negative way rather than a tool of creation and transmutation. That's all. Thank you.
Well, as we know, one can have their own perspective on things, and I believe that's one of those ways. Now, I'm not here to judge anyone who is a witch or who is a goddess or anything, any type of magic or what they do with that cauldron. I'm just here to discuss it, and I will keep my feelings to myself. But going back to,
Let me read the
yes.
definition. A goddess is a female deity, a being worshipped as divine. A witch is traditionally understood as a person who practices magic, sorcery, or witchcraft, dependent on the culture or religion. Some witches did worship goddesses. So, yeah, those are two different things in essence, because if we include God, we have some goddesses that were in the Bible, that was spoken of in the Bible. And that definition came up to be Elohim Eloi in Hebrew. So a goddesses were in the Bible and they weren't necessarily depicted as wicked. That's just that on that.
Okay, well, if anyone is thinking that it's wicked, that's their own conscience because I never used that verbiage. I'm just simply reading from the screen. They in mythology and religion, polytheism and pantheon, ancient cultures like Greek, Roman, Egyptians, and Norse feature rich pantheon of goddesses who represent special forces, virtues, or domains. Notable examples include Athena, wisdom and warfare, Aphrodite, love and beauty, and Issa, motherhood and magic. So, I mean, when they continue to use the word magic, one, and remember, ladies, I'm here to compare and contrast. So I'm comparing and contrasting the goddess, the women of the Bible, also magic, witchcraft. So you're gonna hear, uh, you know, a debate, if you will, against what you're saying, far as is it a goddess or is it a witch? Because they're really real close in there together. Okay,
Well, the discussion
the
isn't really
divine
about a witch.
feminine.
We don't really want to make the witch the real discussion.
I mean, I'm
Because
not
it's
making a discussion, but it is,
unless we're saying that goddesses are witches. Are you
yes.
saying in total that goddess,
Ancient
if you
goddesses
consider yourself a
were
goddess,
deemed witches. Yes.
can you give a scripture? Because there's a scripture that would back up that there would be you should have no other gods or goddesses before God. And would this lead to why we demonize the goddess worship?
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
was
I
getting
kind of
ready to
wanted
say
to read
that,
something,
so I
but go
put
ahead,
my hand
Ignacio.
down. Yeah, I was getting ready to bring that up. As far as it goes in the Bible, um, there are passages where goddesses are not demonized, and you know, furthermore, she specifically named goddesses that you don't know per se were witches. You looked up goddesses that were witches. She said she worshipped goddesses.
Yeah, and I just wanted
That's
to read this as well, right? So the transformation of ancient deities into witches happened in two distinct waves separated by centuries. First, they were demonized and labeled as wicked sorceresses by Christian authorities and medieval translators between 5th and 15th centuries. Second, they were deliberately reclaimed as benevolent symbols of magic by modern neo pagans and Wiccans in the mid 20th century. So Hassett, the shift for her, Hassett's slide from highly respected titaness into a witch goddess started earlier than the others. By the 5th century BCE, classical Greek writers began linking her to ghosts, curses, and graveyard magic. Her official branding as a witch was locked in during the Roman Empire by poets like Lucan and later by medieval Christian scholars who translated her ancient title of pharmacist or herb handler directly into a malicious witch. So when I say that, you know, the reason why we're associating these goddesses with witches is because it was done deliberately so. In the time of when they were being worshipped at their fullness, they were never called witches. They were never evil. They weren't these things. But when the new world order comes in and they want to now create a new mythology, they start to demonize these witches. I mean, these goddesses. It does not make them witches because these regular people said so. And when we're having this conversation, and I like the fact that ChoZen was saying, like, listen, we can't just keep on calling them witches because we are then adhering to the social norm, the social demonization of these witches, of these goddesses, when in all reality, they were never deemed to be so. Just because you are practicing magic doesn't mean you're a witch or a sorcerer, because then I will point you to Moses. I will point you to Jesus. Because what they were doing was considered magic, but nobody on this panel was called them a witch or a sorcerer.
Okay. Anybody else on the
Yes, I like to
goddess?
add,
Mm-hmm.
to piggyback off of Issa, that there's a specific timeline to when the goddesses were actually dehumanized and literally demoted. There's a timeline for this, and it was due to the patriarchal and monotheistic systems, and what
Um,
Issa just said just backs that up.
Okay, initially you had women of the Bible that were known to have played influential roles, like Sarah, Hagar, Deborah, Ruth, Esther, Mary Magdalene. Now, whether or not these ladies are real is questionable, but there is evidence. Now, with the goddesses like Isis, Hathor, Inanna, Ishtar, Ishera, Anat, these were deities. They were not people. They went to these deities of some form, like a wood pole or a statue, and went to pray or to sacrifice or give to these deities that they called goddesses to give them something in return. Probably mimicking the women out of the Bible, a deity to worship, replace them with the prominent women of the Bible, and then start worshiping a deity after the roles that they did. And we'll talk about the influential roles of some of these women and how they played a part to shape his story or her story or our story today. Somebody had their hand.
It's the queen
I
of her
rose,
hand.
yeah, I rose my hand because so the women of the Bible that we revere to this day replaced the older ancient goddesses. They were here way before Mary, either Mary, even down to Sarah, right? They were here first. And we not only know that archaeologically, but we also know that biblically, right? In the Bible, they go Sarah goes into Kemet, and in Kemet there's already worship of Aset. It's already happening. Neith has been worshipped there for thousands of years. Wajet has been worshipped there for thousands of years, right? And and we also need to understand the differences between levels of goddesses. So you will have cosmic mothers. I know y'all heard me say that before, right? And a cosmic mother is the primordial architect of the universe, right? These are the people that creates the universe for us. And that will be your Neith, your Tiamat, your Namu, your Olokun, your Moja, right? They are not born from anyone. They're basically known as the cosmic womb of life. They represent like space and primordial waters and matter, the matter of existence, right? And then you have earthly goddesses. Earthly goddesses are daughters born from divine parents. That will be your Oshuns, your Astarts, your Ananas, your Asets, your Haras. All of these goddesses have mothers. If you look
Hmm.
into the text,
I thought they were
Asherah,
deities.
they're
Right,
all
and if they're a
deities.
deity, then they can't have a mother and father
Hold
like
on,
we do.
hold on. This is what I do. Okay. So if you want to, you can like Google what I'm talking about. Google the difference between the cosmic mother and an earthly goddess. Gaia is a cosmic mother, right? She is a mother of a pantheon. She's the Hera has a mother, even though she's the queen of heaven. I mean, the queen of Olympus, she still was born. There's a whole story behind how, Kronos started eating his children, and then Zeus was the one that got away and freed all of his brothers and sisters. There's a story about Anana and her brother Utu, right? And their mother. There's stories already here. So what I'm saying is not foreign. All I'm saying is I'm just making you aware of the hierarchy when it happens. And when you go to the earthly mothers, that would be Anana, that would be Ishtar, that would be Aset. That will be Astarte, Oshun. These are your earthly goddesses. These are goddesses that are of nature, that is built on the earth, that actually has stories that intertwine with people, has characteristics, have archetypes, all of this character and personality. You don't get that with the cosmic mother that is up in the universe. She's not a part of those things. So there's a difference that's happening. But I'll land there for right now.
All right, thank you, Issa Queen. I wanted to get into some of the women of the Bible. Um,
Okay, and I did have my hand up, so let me go after you, okay?
Oh,
okay, I
go
was
ahead,
just
Empress. Yeah,
go ahead,
let
Empress.
Empress. You wanted to piggyback on that.
Well, I'll let her go and talk about the women of the Bible, and I'll follow up on where she's at, because I was getting ready to bring that into the equation.
Okay, I was just gonna name a few chosen, and you brought out a few names, but I was gonna go through and give the first three that I have. We're gonna start with Eve and what she did. She was the first woman and the first wife created by God. She was deceived by the serpent, and that you can find it in Genesis 2. And she ate the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, gave it to her husband Adam, resulting in fall of mankind. Then we have Ruth. Ruth was a devoted Moabite widow who refused to leave her Israelite mother in law. Naomi, following the death of her husband, Ruth 1, she moved to Bethlehem, gleaned in the fields to provide for them, and eventually married Boaz, becoming the great grandmother of King David. And then we have Esther. Esther, what she did was she was a Jewish orphan who became queen of Persia. You can find that in Esther 2. She courageously risked her life by approaching King Hossein, uninvited to plead for her people, ultimately exposing Haman's plot to annihilate the Jews and saving her nation. So my question to you, goddess women, is are there anything that we can go back or in history to show that something great that was done for the people or for God's people, if they are in fact goddesses, do they work on their behalf or do they work on the people's behalf?
They work for the people. They are they are fertility. They are the goddesses of the hearth, which is a big fireplace for somebody who doesn't know. They are the goddesses of the fields and agriculture and the seasons. They are your life. right? You get an understanding of the different aspects of life when you look at the different goddesses on the planet. And not only that, you also get to learn about different archetypes of personalities when you do that, right? When you see a Sakmet, no, when you see a Hathor who is loving and caring and nurturing to her people, and when her people mistreat her, and she turns into Sakmet and releases her rage, and then after she's done, she turns back into Hathor to bring her people back together, right? That's a story about a woman who is hurt and released her rage. And it was okay. And she learned how to bring her rage back and then build up what she destroyed. It's talking, when you're looking at the actual mythologies, it's talking about us and how we need to deal with our personalities, our archetypes, how we deal with things.
Okay, now since these are not women, right? Wouldn't they have modeled from women who actually existed? Because in the Bible we have reference to women who played very, very key roles. Eve was the mother of all living things. And we can look at women today and say, women are the mother of all living things. If we're talking about goddesses versus women of the Bible, a goddess, what can they offer rather than what a real woman could offer, rather than except to imitate and to get what you wouldn't necessarily be able to get from a real woman who played every aspect of a woman is in these women in the Bible. So what can the goddesses give you that the women, a real woman, couldn't give you? Because the Bible gave you real women to model after. And first being Eve, again, the mother of all living things, that represents motherhood. That also represents fertility. And that also would represent love, nurturing, caring. So that covers a lot that a woman could teach you and you could model after. What could a
Okay,
goddess give you?
I'm going to answer that really quickly. I'm going to let Pretty Tina go. So the thing that we have to recognize about all of these stories is that they're written by people. Everything is written by people. And in these stories, people are passing down knowledge through the ideas of these goddesses. So when you see a goddess in a story, and they have lines and roles and they're intertwining with other people, that is your ancient grandmother trying to tell you a lesson, trying to teach you a lesson, right? And when you're talking about, giving birth and things like that, those are stories that you can find in mythology. But unfortunately, you don't find them in the Bible. Right? There's stories in mythology dealing with these goddesses on how to build a sisterhood. You don't find that in the Bible. You actually find discontent between women in the Bible. You don't actually find friendships of women in the Bible. You don't. They don't even really teach you about being a woman outside of besides domestic life in the Bible. Right? So really, it's the Bible that's lacking when it comes on to what it means to be a woman, not the other way around.
Okay. I'm gonna get in there
Well,
because I've been
go
waiting.
ahead, Empress. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just want to say this. When we speak about these goddesses, we know that these are idols that people worship. These are not humans, they're not real beings. So we cannot compare them with the women of the Bible. They're not compared to Eve. They're not compared to Sarah, to Rebecca, to Rachel, to Leah, to Esther, to Ruth, to none of these women, because these were actually women, pious women who believed in God and lived according to the word of God. Goddesses are things that people actually worship as if they were God, that they depend on as if they were God. And these goddesses can't give you what God gives you. There was a statement said that the magic that they did or whatever is like what Moses and the other prophets did. That's not true, because Moses did not work magic. Everything he did was from the will of God. There's a difference here. Yes, we had witches, we had goddess, we had magicians. We know that because Pharaoh called his magicians out to compete with what Moses was doing. But his magicians could not compete with what Moses was doing, because God is greater than all of this. So when we're talking about these goddesses, let's just remember these are idols that people worship, that people depended on. Even in the Bible, they have areas where the prophets was telling the children of Israel to stop worshiping these idols that they had connected with when they were in Egypt. I mean, this is, we have to understand what we're talking about here. Like, we cannot compare the women of the Bible to these goddesses. These goddesses were not created. They was created by man, not by God. So what, I mean, how can we compare? Like, I think the conversation is good, but I think we should not get confused with, we're talking about human beings, pious women, and then something carved out of stone or wood or whatever that people worship in place of God. I just needed to say that.
Well, could you tell us why the women, or why the need to worship these goddesses? What's the need for goddess worship? If we had great influential women that actually served as judges in the times of kings, and major parts in history, not just the Bible. These are not just mythical figures as of the goddesses would be. These were actual women that trailed a path for other women like Shirley Chisholm, Phyllis Wheatley, Harriet Tubman. These women actually did things modeling after women in the Bible. So, can you tell us what's the need to worship a goddess?
So first, I want to say that all of that was opinion based, right? Y'all like the God of the Bible, and that's the God y'all chose, but that God was written by man, just like every other one, right? Also, um, the the idea that these women were real women, um there's no historical evidence of that, right? There's no historical evidence of Mary. There's no historical evidence of Deborah. There's no historical evidence of any of these women. Not only is there no historical evidence of these women didn't even write their own stuff.
Well, I beg
I
to
know
differ because women exist today. We
that I'm
exist
not
today.
talking
So there
about
were,
women. I'm not talking
even
about
if those
women.
were not real
ChoZen.
women, they modeled after a real woman in a hierarchy or
ChoZen.
in a family or in a village type setting. But the
ChoZen.
goddesses are actually the ones that cannot be proven or found anywhere except maybe on a pole or a statue. But again, what is the need to worship the
I'm
goddess
trying to answer you.
rather than the woman?
So again, Mary, Sarah, Deborah, the mama of the 12 tribes of Israel, these women do not exist. There's no evidence of them existing. Eve doesn't exist. No evidence of these women existing. They are
So you
just
saying a
as
woman did not start
they
The
They are,
creation of life.
that's not what I'm saying. So allow me to say what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the idea, the fact that women exist does not mean that makes Mary exist. Does not mean it makes Eve exist just because women exist. That's not how evidence works. So when you tell me that my goddesses don't exist because all you got is a pole, I'm going to tell you Mary don't exist, Eve don't exist because all you got is a book. And a book it can be an idol just like anything else. Your temple, your church, these are places that you go to worship. How is that different from somebody going to a sacred pole to worship? It's because y'all are not seeing, y'all are not even not seeing, y'all are not giving the same respect that you would give your temple, your church, that you would give to somebody else and where they choose to worship. And that's not a me issue, that's a y'all issue. But then why I feel as though we need to worship the goddess is from what I said before. Because in the Bible, it does not tell you about how to be a woman. It doesn't. It tells you how to be a domestic person. That's what it tells you. Deborah is an anomaly. Deborah standing in front of the warriors and giving them a pep talk is not something that happens every other Sunday. That's that thing that happened that one time, and y'all didn't even give her the respect to let her write her own book and put it in the Bible. Y'all didn't even give her that. So all I'm saying is when it comes down to the goddess worship, you actually have stories that deals with interactions with women. For example, before I land my plane, Oba and Oshun are both wives of Shango. Oshun is the favorite wife, and Oba wants to find out what she can do to become the favorite wife. Oshun, being a trickster that she is, even though we love to see her as the goddess of love, sometimes she could be a bitch. And she decides to tell her, well, cut your ear off. That's what I do. I put it in his soup and he loves it. And he loves me for it. And the crazy lady really did it. And she got exiled. But the meaning of that, right? Because Oba is the goddess of marital righteousness. So when she got exiled for doing that, no marriages in the village was able to be happy. It wasn't until Oshun realized what that woman's place was, what that woman's worth was, go to that woman and apologize to bring her back. Is when the village was back into balance, because this woman had to recognize that this other woman was just as important as she is. And not only that, the woman in question, Oba, had to learn self-respect and how to learn how not to give her all to somebody else. Save some for yourself. You can't find no story like that in no Bible. And if you can, please let me know. And I'll land.
Okay, Empress
So,
had her hand up, and then
but
but
I
not
had my
Fred.
hand up before Empress.
Chosen. Gnostic had her hand up
Okay,
after me the first
okay, go
time,
ahead.
We
and
forgot
Mm-hmm.
then
about
it's and
we
then it's Pretty Tina.
yeah, we forgot about Pretty Tina.
Okay, so I like to
Uh,
read this.
uh,
It's okay, ladies. I'm just listening. You
uh-huh.
guys are actually hitting on good points. I'm listening, girls. When you guys finish and y'all ready for me to talk, I'll talk. But great conversation, ladies.
So when it comes to male-centered women in the Bible who align their primary loyalty, validation, and actions and with patriarch power and structures, um, you'll find that in the Greco-Roman world, which was deeply patriarchal, and they navigated their they were male centered because they grew up, they lived, or rather everything that it's biblical. When you find them, they aligned literally with male centeredness. All the women in the Bible were not, you don't find nothing about giving birth. You don't find nothing about them being how they felt. You know, you could tell that the perspective was from a male perspective, not a woman's perspective.
Mm.
Where when you see the goddesses are literally speaking on giving directions on how to on childbirth, on how to navigate anger, how everything, life, like Issa stated.
So, are you sure this is the same women you're reading from the Bible? Because these women, like Esther, saved the Jewish people through courage and wisdom. Never claimed a divine power, just being a woman. Huldah, a prophet, consulted by kings. The Bible doesn't make women inferior. It makes them really seem to be a major part of history, considered Eve was the mother of all living things.
Right, to
Priscilla
validate.
taught Apollos alongside her husband Aquila. Her authority came through knowledge and ministry. Mary was known as the woman who was anointed enough to bring in the so-called Son of God. The Bible doesn't paint these women to be docile and male-centered. It gives them very, very specific roles. Women
Actually,
even financed Jesus's ministry. They financed it.
right, all for the
Um, and
validation
they
of
were
men.
the first ones that are written. This is what it's depicted that witnessed the resurrection. So it gives them a first in almost everything, especially
Right,
giving you the being the mother of all living things, which we see that now. Whereas your deities and your goddesses mimicked what real women did and probably mocked it by offering and sacrificing children into goddesses, the very ones that came out of them: fertility, motherhood, war, love, wisdom, magic, and nature. Something somebody couldn't get naturally. So they needed to create a deity such as a goddess to worship and bring them this fortune, or these things that women of the Bible spoke of and did without effortlessly. It was never male centered. But go ahead.
absolutely male centered. All it was all for the validation of male structured powers. All of it.
Okay, I just have to ask the question again. Um, well, and I have something to say too. So, are we are we forgetting what who we like, we were talking about goddess, you know, we're talking about things that was carved and created versus actual human beings. So, are we saying that these goddesses taught women how to take care of children? That these goddesses taught women how to be women? I'm sorry. Like, this isn't a realistic way of thinking, because goddesses are carved images that people worship. They said some of the queens of Egypt and stuff would dress like how they dressed the goddess to give them power and strength. Like these are not like this is something that people wrote. How did the goddess tell you how to take care of your child? How did the goddess
Ooh,
tell you how to be a woman? When the goddess
ooh.
is not a woman, the goddess is something that someone carved. And then
Mm-hmm.
we're saying that Mary didn't exist. We're saying that Sarah didn't exist. We're saying that Eve didn't exist. And we're saying that because they're in a book. But this information that you have came from somebody's book. It's not like it just came into your head and you found out all this information. You Google it and it comes up about all these
Mm-hmm.
different goddesses and stuff. So, how are we saying that the women spoke about in the book, who we know were flesh and blood, versus what we know is carved images. And to say that there is no proof of their existence is just kind of ridiculous because there's documented evidence of Mary being over there traveling in Jerusalem. I mean, going all into Europe. Like there's information, and if it doesn't exist, if these people didn't exist, then how do we have the Israelites? How do we have the descendants of Cush? How do we have the descendants of Japhet? How do we have all these descendants of people, bloodlines all over the world if these people from the beginning didn't exist? Like we have to make some sense here. We have to make some sense here.
And
We
again, the
do.
argument is not whether or not they existed. It's whether or not you want to model yourself after a woman out of the Bible. And I'm going to get to some of their characters in more depth in a
No,
second,
they
but I
she
want to.
said they didn't exist. She said that they didn't exist.
Right, but that's irrelevant. It's whether
No,
or
it's
not
not
you want to.
irrelevant because to say that they didn't exist, Eve
Okay,
was the
true.
beginning of mankind. Like how, where did we come from? Where did we
Let's just
descend
say
from if
they
they didn't
didn't
exist?
exist. But let's
Wait,
just say they
wait,
didn't
can we
exist.
slow
Well,
down?
we can't say they didn't exist if the
Hold
flyer
on.
says women of the Bible versus ancient goddess. So we're gonna be talking about the women of the Bible and we're gonna be talking about the ancient goddesses. So we want to make sure that the people know that these one is a deity and one is a human.
And none
So
of them are real people. Okay. So this is the
The
problem that
thing
I'm
is, which
having with the
one would
other.
you want to model? Which one would you
I
want
get
to
that.
be like?
Why do we have to over talk each other? I heard you the
No,
first
go
three
ahead.
times. But I'm gonna respond to the way I want to respond, regardless of how many
Mm-hmm.
times you repeat yourself. So the problem that I'm having is that y'all can recognize that goddesses are real, but y'all can't recognize that Mary ain't real. And that's a cognitive dissonance on your behalf. Right? It's really not about, and I do agree with ChoZen. It's more so talking about what we feel like will be better for women. But I feel like, I'm sorry, Empress, it feels like you just can't separate yourself from the ideology versus like the conversation we're having at hand. Right? Because to be very clear, I can mix. Hold on. I could admit that, these goddesses are mythological, not real, not walking on the planet. I can admit that. Y'all can say it till y'all blue in the face. But the thing is that y'all not being intellectually honest with what y'all talking about. Y'all are not sitting here acting, y'all want to act as if like my stuff is fake, my stuff ain't real, while y'all have the same amount of evidence to prove that y'all stuff. Mary, there is no evidence outside of the Bible that Mary existed. Period. And if y'all want to, instead of looking up goddess on Google, look that up. Because be very clear, you're not going to understand goddess worship just by Googling questions in a day because you're going to have a conversation with Issa. You're not going to learn that way.
So I want to
My
read
bad.
this real quick, if
Mm-hmm.
you don't
I
mind.
mean, the
Um,
discussion is so that we can learn from one another. That's why we're here. That's why we're having the discussion. And ladies, let's make sure that we are allowing each other's perspective be just that, each other's perspective. I don't have to agree with you, but it's okay to discuss what we're trying to discuss. Go ahead, Agnostic.
across the global mythologies, specific goddesses did not just symbolize fertility, they actively directed, managed, and dictated the mechanical instructions of labor. They gave specifics to how for our well-being, including that of our household. It wasn't male centered and it wasn't about just women. It was about people, where the women in the Bible, you're not finding that. It's male centered. It was structure to literally get validation from men.
Hmm.
That's the
So,
difference. So if you're male centered, that is not to your benefit. The sisterhood is.
hmm, so are you saying that the woman don't need a man because the
No,
man is
I'm not
part
saying that.
of the structure? You
I'm not
do
saying
know
that.
that.
I'm not
Okay.
saying that at all. What I'm saying
Okay.
is that the goddesses gave instructions on how to deal with life, men and women, people as a whole,
Hmm.
where the structure of the women in the Bible is male centered.
Okay. So, with that being said, as a goddess, as you guys are fully in belief with the goddess thing, is that what you teach the young women to become a goddess, to practice herbalist? And we read the list of things that goddesses do. Is that what you promote to the young women to become a goddess, or do you promote to the young women to be a spiritual woman, a holy woman? It's a question. Go
I
ahead.
endorse women to
Hmm.
walk a path of integrity, to not cause others the pain they don't wish on themselves.
Um,
Can I just
yeah.
ask her? So how did she get? How did the goddess give you this information? Like how was this information given from the goddess?
Through mythology, just like how you got your information through mythology. We all
So
getting our
is
information
Okay. So,
from we all are getting our information from mythology, from ancient people writing down stories, out of their own ideology and out of their own creations. They give you a story, and thousands of years later, we're all reading it. We're just saying that the ones that are older than your stories are better for women. That's what we're saying.
so Issa
okay.
hold up, Charles. Let me ask this question, and then I'll get off the mic.
Wait, but I
It
got
do
a
you
follow up.
as a goddess, do you have is your deity like the Holy Spirit? Because the Holy Spirit guides women of the Bible. The Holy Spirit gives them anointing, right? So is your deity like the Holy Spirit where it can dwell in you?
What?
So, I don't know what the Holy Spirit be teaching y'all because, like, when I went to school, and by school I mean Sunday school. When I went to Sunday school, they were very vague when it comes to women. They'll tell you you will prophesize, but they don't tell you how. They'll tell you that you can bear children and have a husband, but they don't tell you how to be a woman. They'll tell you that it's good to have children and elevate your man, but it doesn't teach you how to elevate yourself. So the issue is, and I feel like y'all are mishearing what we're saying. I started this conversation saying that I'm a regular person. I'm not trying to create goddesses out of anybody. I'm trying to create better people. I'm trying to create women who know themselves. And I'm trying to create women who can actually have fundamental, foundational, secure relationships with other women. Because in all reality, women are the community. Women are the first teachers. Women are the village. And if you don't haven't cultivated relationships with other women, that's an issue. There's no such thing as I'm not a girl's girl. Girl, you a girl.
I'm
You got
not.
something in you.
I don't
You got
like
something.
girls like that. I like men. So I'm not a girl's
I get
girl.
it. Why do you see how I'm talking about women camaraderie and the first thing you worried
Okay,
about is a man?
let's get
I'm
stay on track, lady.
no,
That's
Let's
I'm
just
just
crazy
stay
to
on
me.
saying.
I'm
track.
not even talking about relationships. I'm not
Some
even
Okay.
women
talking. I'm
don't
talking
All
about
right.
worship.
Let's not make it one
cultivating.
of these. Let's just
Wait,
keep
hold
it
on, hold
keep it on
on. Let me
point.
just finish what I'm saying. I'm talking about cultivating meaningful relationships with other women, not having sex with them. I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
When you
I
want
don't
a
think that's.
babysitter, how
I
many
think
men
that's
do
the
you
problem.
call? Why are we talking over me? I don't think
We're
anybody is
talking with
talking
each
over.
other, actually.
No, we're not. No, we're not. You're
This
you're
is a
responding to what
discussion.
I'm
All
saying.
right.
It's
Well,
not a
have some
discussion.
patience with your
Whenever I'm
sister.
talking, y'all are talking over me. But when y'all are talking, everybody's on mute. Everybody.
Okay,
So
finish
miss
what you're
me
saying,
with
Issa.
this is just how we doing it. No, it's not. This is how you're deciding to do it because you don't like what I'm saying. So now I'm gonna just land my plane with this. The fact that I can't even talk about having a reasonable relationship with another woman that is non-sexual and it brings up that much animosity in you is my testament to why the Bible isn't for you. Y'all don't know how to build relationships with other women. Y'all don't know how to cultivate a real meaningful bond with another woman where y'all can lean on each other. Y'all don't know how to do that.
Okay,
I'm
as
gonna
a
lean there.
goddess, shouldn't you help if you're a
Boy, you call
goddess?
me a goddess
Wait,
one
Can
more
we not?
time. I said
Yeah,
I'm a
let's move on. I
human.
wait.
have some things prepared that I want. I don't.
I just
That's not
had I
here and
just
there
had one
because.
question. Just one.
Mm-hmm.
So what I have to ask y'all, that believe in goddesses, so how does this work? Because I know as a believer in God, I pray, I have faith, I know that, whatever I need, he's going to provide. So, how does this work with the goddesses? Do y'all pray to the goddesses? Do you chant? Do you, how do you know the goddess answered you? How do you know? Like, I know because I see the changes, the things that I need being done. But how do you know that when you pray to this goddess and say, show me how to be a woman, that the goddess is showing you? And it's not just you learning what it means to be a woman. Like how does
Mm.
this work?
So I never spoke about praying to anybody. You don't have to do all of that. This is 2026, right? What I advise people to do is to read their stories. Read the story. Read what Aset was doing when, she lost Asar. And read through her grieving process. Read through how she put herself together and then created something new with all of those pieces. You never heard of that before? You never had somebody die and you didn't know what you was going to do in your grieving? What the Bible tell
Well,
you to do? Go pray about it. What Aset going to tell you to do? Pick up your pieces. Pick up this piece right here that's the love and admiration that you have for this person. Pick up these memories that you have of this person. Pick up the love that you felt for this person and the love that the person felt for you. Pick up all of those things, put it inside you and create something new. Not and in remembrance of this person. That's where her
isn't
root comes
that
in.
Okay.
isn't that
That's
just
where
how
her
it
root
is?
comes
Wait,
Okay.
in.
wait, wait,
So.
wait. I gotta
So.
follow that up.
Yeah.
I gotta follow that up. So
Okay.
when you say that, so you're saying that what we do if we follow this, goddess concept is that
Mm-mm.
we read the goddess story, and then we take information from that to know how to make choices in life. Even though these goddesses aren't real, even though they haven't lived, and I don't know where they get these stories from, but we're supposed to believe that these carved images somehow wrote out stories of their life or told stories of their life for someone to write out so that
Just
we can read this information and apply it to how we live as women. I mean, this is this what we're
Empress,
saying?
let me ask you a question. What book God wrote? Like with his
Well,
own hand.
he gave you
Which
the
book?
Torah. He
Mm.
gave you the
No,
Torah, the
no, no, no,
Zebora, the
no, 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 no,
Injil,
no,
and the
no.
Quran.
Moses wrote the Torah.
No,
Moses wrote those stories. What
where
word that
did the
God with his
information
own
come from? The information
let me
came from God.
finish. Let
It
me
didn't come
finish.
from
What
Moses.
word did God write with his own hand? Which word was it? Because
Well,
you asking me,
that the
just
Torah was
because
written by his pen.
listen to the hypocrisy in you right now. You have
Hypocrisy in
a
me.
you yes, a hypocrisy. Hold
Let
on.
Okay.
her finish,
You have
Empress.
a religion.
You asked her a
You have
question.
a
Let her finish.
religion. You have a religion that was written by prophets, right? Moses. You even going down into Muhammad. Muhammad didn't even write his shit. He had somebody else write his shit for him because he was ignorant or whatever, right? None of these was written by Allah or God. It was written by people walking on this earth. I don't care how many divine visions they had. So why can't you understand that in the goddess worship, it works the same way? That people are writing stories based on these gods, getting divine knowings from people from these goddesses. Why is that such a
That is
hard
because that's
concept for
not
you
the
when it's the
story of the
main
Okay.
goddesses.
concept in what you believe?
Okay, let me answer that because of the simple fact that your goddesses were not human. God didn't talk to them. God had nothing to do with the creation of them. And when you say God and Allah, they're one. It's only one God, the creator of all things. And man created these here goddesses and the gods to worship over God. But they do not replace him. They do not have the power that he has. They cannot do what God can do. And when you speak about Prophet Muhammad and you said he didn't write it, he's ignorant. No, he wasn't ignorant. He was illiterate, and Allah said he chose him to be that way so that people couldn't say that he copied the information that came before. But when you read the Quran, you who believe in science, there's over 1,000 scientific facts. You have scientists
Mm.
worldwide who have reverted to Islam because of the information that they found that aligns with what they already know from their studies. You can go throughout the Quran and you find out how to live in a manner that is pleasing to the Creator. You can go through the Bible and find out what God wanted from you, what he did, how he favored those who he said was chosen. These goddesses are things that someone carved up. And here we are centuries
Again.
later, and you're saying that the information they gave that you can read from them is compared to what we have as scriptures. It's no way you can say that what you have as a story from something that never was created, that never lived, that wasn't human, had no life, somehow gave this information about how they fell down and they got back up, or
This is
how they took their ear and
retarded.
put it in the
I want to
food.
say something. I keep
I
getting just
mean,
skipped
let's be
over.
real. God is
Yeah,
telling us how to live in a way
I'm no
that's
longer
pleasing
Let
to
me
him.
talking
let
to
me go
Empress.
first,
Please.
I
Issa.
literally raised my
So,
hand
Okay,
like
oh,
20
go
Empress.
ahead.
minutes
Okay,
ago.
Empress.
I,
Let's get order. Let's get some order, ladies. I appreciate your
Okay, I'm gonna
enthusiasm.
go on mute.
yeah,
This is
please
really
do
good
because it doesn't make sense.
conversation, and but I want us to stay, in the way that we're going, at peace. Purple, and then a Gnostic, and then chosen.
Okay, so to be clear, there is no historical evidence of the women y'all have been talking about. None. The only historical evidence that archaeologists, shit, I can't even say the word right now.
Archaeological.
Yeah, that
Archaeologists.
that word um is Theosebia, Gilaruna, uh Artemidora, Leda, and Bishop Theodoria. That's it, that's all. They have found no evidence of any other person, any other woman. Now, when we talk about what Empress was saying, I'm always told that the Bible, the Quran, they are a guide for life, how you should act. How is that any different than what Issa said about the goddesses giving guidance on how to deal with specific particular situations, like grieving, like motherhood, like sisterhood, like, hell, farming, uh, weather anomalies, right? How is that any different than the Bible? If you guys are going to say the Bible, the Quran, the Torah are just, guides to how we should live our lives, why can't you accept that what we know, these stories that we know of these goddesses are also guides to how one can live their life? You can't have it both ways, right?
Mhm.
If you want to
Okay.
say that these, where these stories come from because they didn't come from people, blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
we don't have historical evidence of
Mhm.
the women that you're talking about existing either. So
Uh,
why can't two things be the truth? Y'all who
Well,
believe
we
in
don't. I,
y'all who believe in no, see, you know what? I haven't
I'm
spoken but
sorry. Go
once.
ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If y'all want to follow these religious texts as a way to live your life, that's no different than what the stories about the goddesses are. And I don't in TT, I don't know why you keep calling Issa a goddess. She's never once said that she was one. Never
And
once.
that's really
Okay.
disrespectful.
Okay. So
But I
that
was
was just
next.
a slip of the
I was
tongue, or not?
next.
That's
You
fine. But
you
I'm gonna clear that up. That was just slip of the tongue because we are discussing goddesses, and she said
right,
this
but
is what
it
she
was more
do.
than once. But at the end of the
Well,
day,
I mean, I'm not
they're
used to
both
talking to
directions.
goddesses, believers.
They're
So I
they're
mean,
both directions, right?
You
and
could just call
and
me
as
Issa.
much as you say that you're here to teach or whatever, you're literally dehumanizing bad versus good types. But since we're going that route, at the end of the day, nothing about what you said about these women isn't male centered. Isn't literally. Yours guide you to get validation from men, and the other one teaches you entirely about life. Now, FYI, I'm an atheist, agnostic atheist. I don't believe in either. But if I were to choose, I would choose the goddesses because I have read some of these books. I've
mhm.
read some of these God about these lives about these goddesses. They literally guide you in everything. You can find a goddess for literally everything in life.
Okay.
Where when it comes to the women in the Bible, it's just about male validation and status from men.
okay.
Okay.
Everything,
Like a
Okay. You
even while
repeating
you guys
yourself,
are
man. We heard this
explaining
point
it,
last time.
even while you guys are explaining it, you're literally letting us, you're literally proving our point how male centered y'all all are.
We're
okay.
actually here
Thank you for
discussing with
that, agnostic.
women.
This the thing. Let me get in here because it's not about whether these women existed again. Women are mothers. That's portrayed in the Bible. They prophets. They tell you, don't go down there. Don't do that. They're judges. They discern whether or not this is right for you or wrong for you, whether or not you should be unaliving somebody or brutally beating somebody. They were queens in the Bible. They were business women in the Bible. They were disciples in the Bible. They were teachers in the Bible. They were evangelists in the Bible. And they were wise counselors to men in the Bible. Who else is there but men and children left after the animals? Who are we to guide and counsel the animals? We are supposed to have been the ones that counseled, prophesied, did business with the men that were of that time. Now, what the Bible does is give these women characters. Character. They have character. They were honored. They were not worshiped. That's the main difference between the goddess and the women of the Bible. These women were honored for the things that they have done, substantial things like your mothers and your grandmothers. They followed after the women in the Bible. The honor that these women got were respect, appreciation, and learning from example. How you get your governmental systems and your school system, all the things that have to deal with philosophy and love and how to nurture and care. These things were given from women in the Bible. And then again, your ancient Egyptians, they worship different gods and goddesses from the elements of the earth that the creator gave, thinking that those things came from something other than the woman, which actually took the credit away from the woman and gave it to some idol thing that could not give you anything. The reason why these women still worship goddesses today is unknown. Only they could tell us that. But as far as it being male-centered, they were given positions. If we want to talk about Jesus, Jesus gave Mary the first position as being the mother of God. What more hierarchy can you get from being the mother of the creator? Again, a deity can only give you what you can't get from the mother or the father. So men is a very part of life. I don't know where else we would get what we would center it off of, the children as well. Deborah was a judge and a military leader. That's not male-centered. That's life. Maybe if we had more mothers and women following after the women of the Bible, we would have a nation of and be backed by the women. They modeled, Ruth was a woman of the Bible. She modeled loyalty, how to give loyalty to your sisters and your family. Mary Magdalene was the first one to witness this crucifixion or resurrection. Priscilla was a teacher. She taught the churches. These were not docile women. Phoebe, she was a church servant and a trusted leader. These are giving women titles that I don't even think they're giving you today. What does the goddesses give you as a woman? What title does the goddess give you as a woman? You're giving the goddess all of the worship that should be to you as a woman. I'm gonna land on there.
So I think this conversation kind of got lost, right? The conversation was supposed to be about what would be good for understanding what a woman is, right? And I get that y'all have a whole bunch of,
that is not the conversation. I gotta correct you. I'm sorry, Issa. It's who should we model ourselves after? Should we do goddess worship or model ourselves after the women in the Bible?
I just said that.
Not teaching you what a woman is.
Oh my God. Like, listen, I'm not going to talk the way
goddesses.
I'm not going to talk the way that you want me to. In essence, that's what I'm talking about. Right? What in which path should women find themselves in like goddesses or the Bible? And this is the issue that I'm having. Why are you continuously talking over me? I don't understand. Again, everybody was silent while you were talking. As soon as one of us are talking, you're constantly saying something.
I need you to chill out. Sorry, I had to correct you.
I need you to chill out. You don't have to correct me. Wait your turn. Just like I'm going to wait my turn when I need to correct you.
This is not
like I'm doing right now. Like I'm doing right now. Right? Because I'm correcting you on the craziness that you just said. But I allowed you to say what you wanted to say. No, this is a correction. And I understand that in a lot of people's lives, they don't know what that looks like. But this is not me being mean to you. This is me telling you that you are out of order. That's what I'm telling you.
There is no order.
It is the order. Right now it's
As a
my turn to
goddess,
speak, and it's your turn to be quiet. That's the order.
I had to correct you. We're
You
not
ain't
learning
have
how
to
to be
do
women.
nothing but sit in your box. That's the only thing you had to do.
Issa, let's go.
When
Come
you
on.
want to correct me, wait your
If you
turn.
want to
At the
filibuster,
end of the
fine.
day,
If
if
you
you
don't
want to
have
correct
anything
me,
to base
just
your
wait
goddesses
your
off of,
turn. When it's
then
your
fine.
turn, you can speak. I don't understand why you keep speaking while I'm speaking.
I had
I
to
don't get
correct
that.
you, ma'am. Sorry.
You don't need to correct me. Correct you. Now, back to what I was saying. I don't care if people believe in the Bible or not. If y'all like Mary, big ups to y'all. But to pretend as if the Bible isn't giving you a male centered version of doing all of these things is crazy to me. Thank you. It's crazy to me, right? Even in what you're talking about, Mary has no other life other than being Jesus's mother. Where I come from, you could be a mother, you could be a judge, you could be, a herbalist, you could be all of those things wrapped up in one. You don't have to pick and choose and what you want to do. Also, when I'm talking about the stories, like I gave you the story about Oshun and Oba, right? What story would y'all point to when y'all are feeling a certain type of way and you want to hear a woman's voice in your spirituality? What story would you go to that is written in the voice of a woman? Because I could go to
The goddess
Oshun
is
and
the
it's written in
Greek
her.
word that's from males. The Greek men started
Girl,
that.
I asked a question specifically. Like, I know I've answered at least 10 to 15 questions of y'all's.
Every
So the
woman,
one question I'm asking y'all,
so me,
what
I would go to
book?
Isaiah 54. Then
That's
mine would be the barren
Isaiah the
woman.
man. So did Isaiah write
It doesn't
Isaiah
matter. It's
54?
still giving.
Right. So
It doesn't matter. It's still
the
okay. I'm
question
gonna let you have
was,
it.
the question was, what book, what scripture written by a woman can you go to where you
All
feel
of
like,
them.
damn, I'm feeling like I need to go to a woman? So, what book was written by a woman that you can go to and get
All of
your
them.
womanly advice from?
Because all of them. Because if these
So,
women
all
in
of
the
the Bible
Bible
was
were
written by
mothers,
women? So,
I'm
all of the
answering the
Bible was
question.
written by women.
All of these women were mothers, prophets, judges, queens, business women,
Were they
disciples,
written?
teachers, and evangelists. So any
Yeah,
of those women
this is
I
about to
could
be
go
over.
to and read about as and follow in those footsteps as a woman.
Which one was
In
written
fact,
by a woman? That's the key
all of them,
word.
because
Written.
if women were the ones that were the mothers, they the ones told the story of a mother by being the mother. You see, the thing is, these were real women that's modeling after real women. Whether or
This
not
goes
they
crazy.
existed,
Yet
these
they didn't
things
speak about
came off
childbirth.
of a woman. So the Bible itself was written off of mothers. Eve being the mother of all living things, prophets, telling you what's coming next and telling the message to the people and giving them truth. Judges. All of these stories are off of the lives of women. So you could go to any scripture in the Bible. It's all written by a woman because the woman lived the story. The man just wrote about it.
So the man wrote the story. Thank you. Next. Who else is gonna try to answer the question?
Even your goddesses were also
Okay,
wrote
if you
by
read,
Greek philosophers.
if
Did
No,
you
you
you're
know
read,
that?
talking about Greek goddesses. Like
Yes,
I said, I don't.
and your African Egyptian goddesses.
Okay. That's a lie,
They
but okay.
they worship
That's a
the
lie,
earth, the
but okay.
land. that were
That's a lie.
goddesses, what
You
they
do recognize
considered.
that that's a lie, though, because the Greeks didn't write the stories of Offset and Osar, but the Greeks absolutely wrote what's in your Bible. So we're not even going to play that game.
Okay, let me verify this.
Oh, okay.
Well, and if
Goddesses,
Right.
you
because
and if
they're the
you
Verify.
one
read
that came
Please.
up with the
And
word
please
God.
don't.
So they're the
Please,
one. It's a
please.
God is a Greek word. So if you're
but if
gonna
you
say
read
God and goddesses, ma'am, it's Greek.
Let's be very clear. We're talking about a whole group
You're
of
using
deities. And
goddesses. You're not using what the
I
ancients did.
speak I speak English, right? So when I speak English, please be informed that for the rest of the conversation, I'm going to be using English words.
Yes, a
Just for
Greek
the rest
word
of this
that was made by
conversation, right?
Greek philosophers.
So then in this conversation, when we're talking about goddesses, right? And then I be specific because when I said Neith, that's what they called her. They didn't call her goddess Neith. They called her Neith. Or, well, really, they called her a different name that I can't even fucking pronounce because I don't speak that language. But in translation, it's called Neith, right? When I spoke about Oshun, they just called her Oshun. Actually, she's an Orisha, right?
So
So
it's
yes,
safe
I
to
can
say that the
recognize.
goddess,
Yes, I can
they're not
recognize
women.
that the etymology of these words go back to certain things because I am living in a colonized world. I can respect that. Now that we got that, ironed out, can we move on with the English conversation so we can all understand each other? Or let me know when y'all gonna start speaking click language. Like what?
okay, I just want to say that
I'm
in
telling you the
Proverbs
root of the
31,
word. If you're
I
saying that it came from the stories were not written by women, neither was a goddess. That
no, but I
But
concept
just
that's
want
came
to
not
by
say
already,
that
that's
men.
not an argument that I'm having. That's an argument that you having with your brain. I already told you that an hour ago.
I don't
I
know
okay,
if
told
I
you
the
this
just
an
goddess
hour
worship
ago.
is
This
working
is a
for you.
cognitive dissonance on your behalf because in your mind, those women are real. And in
It
your mind,
so
saying that
no,
the
it's a
goddesses
queen.
aren't
It's a
real is
queen.
somehow giving you a one up in the
They
conversation,
are
not
models.
recognizing that none of this shit is real. None of it. But that's not the
Actually,
point,
it
though.
is. The women
Actually,
are
that's
real,
not the point, though. The
but
point
the women
isn't
are
if they're
real
real
because
or not.
mothers
The
actually
point
existed.
isn't if they're
But
real or not.
hoes
The
did
point
not
is,
exist. They
what are
were
you
created.
learning?
Okay, go ahead. Because
Male
we
no,
centeredness.
really don't have a
but I just
discussion because these goddesses were not women. So there's no comparison, like Empress said. I land
Okay,
on that.
biblical women
okay, but wait,
involved
I have my hand
women
up.
who
I have my
align.
hand up.
Yeah,
I've been waiting. I've been waiting for a while. I just
okay.
wanted to say she asked if there's a place. If you read Proverbs 31, that is a mother telling her son, the king, what type of woman that he should look for. And when you read Proverbs 31, that is a description that all women can take and look and see and guide by, be guided by. So, I mean, there is places where you have where a mother talks to her son about what type of woman that he should look for. And then there's also places in there where you have um laws given to the women how they should dress. If a man violates
Jeez.
them. I mean, there's all kind of information in the Bible and in the Quran that gives women a understanding of who they are as women. Like, I don't understand the question of where we get that understanding from. I mean, we don't get it from, I mean, again, I just have to ask you, so are these gods, these goddesses, do they, how did they come alive and give this information about when they gave their ear, put it in soup for their husband, or when they, tell you about how to be a woman? Like, did they come alive and tell these stories and then go back into carved images? Like,
Oh
where does this
God.
information come
Issa, let
from?
me read this after she's done before you go.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, biblical women, male-centered women, um, involves women who align their primary loyalty, validation, and actions with patriarchal power structures, often at the expense of other women or their own autonomous well being, because the ancient Near East and Greco Roman world were deeply patriotic. Many biblical narratives centered on women navigating these structures. This is easily Googled. This is
Yeah.
easily Googled.
So here's
I,
the thing. Here's the thing.
mhm.
I hear what you said, Empress, but a man wrote that.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the issue, right? A man wrote that about an imaginary mother telling him what kind of woman he should want. And it would be beneficial to the man to describe what he believes is a pious woman. That's the first thing. The second thing is,
The comprehension.
goddesses created laws, right? In the Bible, the women are following the law. They're not creating the law themselves, right? That's a difference between goddesses and the women of the Bible. That's
So it says here that ancient goddesses consider themselves are divine. Women of the Bible are human. Ancient goddesses receive worship. Ain't nothing about that you. You don't have no part in this. The goddess does. The thing that you go to as a woman to give your power to worship, to bring you something that you can't get naturally back in return. You exercise divine authority over what? Over fertility rituals, bowel worship, divination. Objects, goddesses are objects of worship. You're not the goddess unless you are the thing that's being worshiped. But you said you don't consider yourself a goddess. So you, as a woman who worships goddess, don't have no power. You going to a deity to get it. Possess supernatural power. So the goddess possess supernatural powers. Well, I need to go to the goddess to get some water flowing through to this land because it's a drought. And the goddess does it. You don't do it as a woman. So I wouldn't want that power because I don't have none because I'm giving it to the goddess. Receive sacrifices in temples. Now, a temple, that might be nice to have a temple after you as a goddess, but somebody's bringing you something like they baby to give to the goddess so that they can get something in return. Is that something that our women want to model after? Do we want to practice giving up our children like we have in so many cases all over the news since we got so many women worshiping goddess? Because this is a part of goddess worship. Do we want to be offering sacrifices such as our living beings to the goddesses to give us rewards in return? Because the women of the Bible worshiped the Creator Himself, served God. That means being a servant to your people. They were out fighting wars, fighting off enemies, preserving their land, protecting their kingdoms. They had moral examples of how to be, how to not be loud, how to not be a liar, how to not be sinful, how to not hate. They had moral examples and they depended on the creator, the earth, the natural things of itself to give to them, not something that was specific, that was an idol that stood there, and unless you gave it power, it had no power. But you, the woman, had the power. So would it be safe to say again that these deities and goddesses took what belonged to the women and started having them worship it, leaving the women with no authority and no power? And I'm going to land here with some women you probably never heard of. Abigail, Issa, Ada, Asenath, Athaliah. These are women of the Bible. They were wives. They were wives of kings, very prominent women. Who else? Athaliah, you have Azubah, wife of another king. Bathsheba, Queen of Sheba, was a historical person. This was the woman responsible and ruled over frankincense and myrrh. Very educated, very wise woman. She was in the Bible. If I wanted to model myself after anything, it wouldn't be a pole or a deity or something that stood idle. It would be after the women who actually had a real life role, like Harriet Tubman, helping freeing the slaves and traveling them through the Underground Railroad.
So, ChoZen, are we really going to sit here and act like they didn't pray to God for rain, for food?
Girl,
Are we really
like
going
this conversation is wild at this point. It's a
Okay,
fucking
so they
circle jerk.
didn't pray to something that
Wait,
they
hold on. I'm
created out
sorry.
of
I'm sorry.
iron
I'm
and
sorry.
wood.
I'm sorry. I cut her off. It's still on purple. I cut her off. Go ahead, purple.
She asked me a question.
I mean, it's just wild to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you just said, because you sitting here acting like with a straight face that nobody prayed to God to bring them what they felt they needed, right?
They didn't pray
Then
to an
you're
item.